Salutations, Jake here. And do you ever get the feeling that you want to piss people off one day, so you decide to share some opinions you have that not everyone agrees with? I get those feelings all the time. Opinions. Everyone's got them. But not everyone will agree with those same opinions. And that's honestly what makes them so fun to share. Whether it be differences in taste in food, or a character that you like, it's always fascinating to learn to discover that people will not always like or dislike what the other does. However, like most things in life, there are those opinions that only a small minority believes in, and these following 10 opinions are just things that make me feel like I'm in that minority. We all got different tastes after all, whether it be food, or movies, or games, or characters, or shows, or really anything. So it's natural to feel this way. Just to let you know, all of these are my own opinions, of course, and I will try my best to explain why I feel this way about the opinions that I have. I rank these in order of how lonely I feel with this opinion. So with that, let's begin my top 10 unpopular opinions. Please don't kill me.
Put place a 0 after 1, and you've got yourself a 10.
I decided to start the list off pretty tame by saying that Ralph Bakshi's Fritz the Cat movie is overrated. Now don't get me wrong, I am very grateful that this movie exists. After all, without this movie, animation for adults wouldn't even be considered. And without this movie, would shows such as Family Guy, South Park, and Drawn Together exist? Probably not. So in a way, I have this movie to thank for actually broadening the animation medium to a broader audience than just kids. But that doesn't make the movie itself good. I mean, it does definitely get away with loads of crazy shit, like swearing, drugs, racial and religious stereotypes, sex, and other stuff that I can't share out of fear of getting this video age restricted. But the big problem is, it doesn't really have anything else. The story is a complete mess, and it basically feels more like an anthology movie with different segments. As soon as one scene is finished, it moves on to another completely different scene with no explanation or build up, getting introduced to characters who we barely even know the names of. It's a disjointed mess that's hard to follow, and the fact that the pacing is pretty slow doesn't help either. The jokes in this movie are not exactly hilarious, and the stereotypes in this movie honestly hurt to watch nowadays. Also, I don't give a shit about any of the characters, and Fritz the Cat himself does absolutely nothing to me. He's a bit of a twat honestly, and he's mainly just a cat that gets in misadventures throughout New York, trying to bang women. This is the character that filmmakers want us to get invested in. The main reason why this is so low on the list though, is that I know there are actually a few people that feel like this movie isn't very good. I mean, Matt and Trey don't like it, for example. But at the same time, I still see people bring this movie up like it's a masterpiece, like it belongs in film history. And I feel like a movie this messy and this unfocused doesn't really deserve to have this accolade. It feels like they spent more time trying to make it raunchy and offensive, instead of making it a movie with a compelling story and characters first and foremost. Besides, there have been raunchier things out there released since, so it's not exactly that special to watch today. But hey, regardless of how you feel about it, we can all agree it was better than its sequel.
Number 9.
Number 9 for me is one that I feel is kinda straightforward, but it's that I actually enjoy motion controls in video games. When it comes to gimmicks in game consoles, or accessories even, they can be kind of a make or break deal to me, especially consider how well it's utilized. And when it comes to motion controls, I actually don't mind them for the most part. I say for the most part because I understand that when they're done terribly, you'll certainly notice it, like in Sonic and the Secret Rings, or in Data Design Interactive's load of tripe. Ugh. But when it's implemented well, I must say that it feels immersive, and can be my preferred way to play some games in all honesty. Keyword being some. I feel like when Wii games use motion controls, like in games like Mario Kart Wii or Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, it feels immersive and satisfying to use. I always found it really cool using the Wii remote like a sword or a wheel, or a bat, or really any other item. I'm not even just talking about casual games or used in gimmicky ways either. I'm talking about actual proper games that do a great job at implementing the motion controls. Games like Super Mario Galaxy, which uses them in surprisingly creative ways. And hey, it's not just the Wii I'm talking about. There are other peripherals that I think do motion controls in fun ways too, like the iToy for PlayStation 2 for example. And granted, a lot of the games were minigame compilations, but honestly, this small little guy has way more character and charm than a bloody Kinect, that's for sure. I should point out though that when it comes to controlling my games, of course, using a proper controller is definitely my preferred way to play games, and motion controls is, of course, not the better way for me. But if I was offered that as a choice, then I wouldn't say no, unless it of course controls like ass. But as a control scheme on its own, I don't mind it.
If you could make a figure 8.
For number 8, I decided to choose an interesting one and said I think that the Helliverse is awesome. Now the reason why this opinion is very low is because I know there are people that definitely love the Helliverse, and I see those all the time. But I also feel like as if I'm more vocal about it than some others would say, hence why it's in this position. I learned about the Helliverse back in 2019 when Hazbin Hotel's pilot first came out, and I was hooked. It was so amazing, and to me it felt that this was to indie web animation what Song of the Sea was to indie animated movies. The Hazbin Hotel pilot pushed boundaries on how adult animation should be like, with its swears and sexual content, but it wasn't just that from start to end. It actually had memorable characters, a really neat and iconic animation style, an interesting story about Charlie making a hotel to redeem demons and fix Hell's overpopulation problem. And hey, it was also a musical. Granted, the pilot only had 3 songs, but they were all bops. And then not long after, we got Hell of a Boss's pilot, which was also great, with all the same great stuff from Hazbin's pilot, but with a different story about Blitz and his group of Imp, who run a murdering company in Hell, and it also had an interesting subplot surrounding Solus and Blitz's relationship. And also Moxie's in it, and he's voiced by Zim!
What?
And granted, both pilots are kind of rough today, but they still have their charm, and when both series proper came out, it felt awesome to see more of the lore of Hell of a Boss and Hazbin Hotel expanded, to see more of the world building of Hell and Heaven, to see various background characters from the pilots actually get development, to see more emotional drama erupt from all this, to see plenty of the humorous and memorable moments that are so easily quotable, to see more of the character development and interactions, and to hear more of the songs, and the fact they're all toe-tappingly brilliant helps too. I love the Helliverse so much, but the reason this opinion is on this list to begin with is just, well, as much as people enjoy this series, there are an equal amount of people that despise it. And there's nothing wrong with criticizing the series, like for example, its pacing or some jokes or valid criticisms. But there are people that legitimately believe that all Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss entails is nothing but swearing and sex jokes from start to finish. And not only that, but those same people also laugh at other people and insult them for saying both series are more than just that, which they are. They even go as far as to insult Vivian Medrano for enjoying these types of jokes. Dude, it's her show, it's not like she's hurting anyone by making them. And this type of criticism is just unhealthy and unhelpful. I swear that the Helliverse is one of the most toxic hatedoms I think I've ever seen. I mean, I understand that the Helliverse isn't everyone's cup of tea, but that doesn't mean insulting others about it is the right answer, or acting like you're so entitled that anyone else's opinion is just useless. A part of me feels like they haven't seen this show proper, but the thing is, they have, and they still feel that way about it. They're not even trolls about it either, they legitimately think that way about the Helliverse, and it feels incredibly unfair. No, I won't name drop anyone here because I'm not a cunt. But yeah, despite what its haters have to say about it, I think that the Helliverse is amazing and among my favorite cartoons of all time. Maybe it has been a little more so, but both are pretty fantastic. And if it wasn't for the Helliverse, I would have never thought of checking out other indie animated works, including Glitch's various shows, which are all awesome, or catching up to name but a few. So in a way, the Helliverse is something that I don't think I'm going to be putting down anytime soon.
Making people happy, that's my favorite game. Lucky 7 is my natural name.
Number 7 is another one that I don't have much to go on about. But it's a simple thought that when it comes to multiplayer, I think playing locally on the couch is better than playing online. Don't get me wrong, I can definitely see the appeal of playing a game online with your mates, especially with people you probably won't meet online. Probably for the best. But I also know that in the rare case where a multiplayer game doesn't have an online mode, people are not going to like it. And while an online mode would make some games more exciting to play, what exactly is wrong with playing games multiplayer with others around you? Personally, while I find online multiplayer fun, it's not without its faults. For one, it's not always reliable. You have to depend on your internet connection to stay connected. But the problem is not everyone's internet connection is 100% reliable, and they will encounter some lag or just disconnect from the game entirely. And speaking of lag, occasionally you might encounter some input delay when playing games, and sometimes it's definitely noticeable. Other times not so much, but still. And you're not even guaranteed to be able to join a match, since the slightest thing could just kick you out for no reason. And that's not to mention, when you do join a match, when you're a beginner, they'll even put you in matches with people with way higher level and experience than you, making it pretty unfair. And this has happened to me from experience, so I know. And the biggest fault with online gaming is that it ain't forever. At some point the servers will go down, rendering the game, or the service, unplayable online. And if the game you buy is online only, then that's bound to cause problems down the line. I suppose this is why I'm not that truly into online multiplayer games, aside from the odd one that you might see. And this is why I think local multiplayer is where it's at, because stuff like that never goes away. You get the whole fun of sharing the entire multiplayer experience with the person next to you, and I just find that really satisfying. Plus, when it comes to communicating in a multiplayer game, particularly if it's got a lot of puzzle elements, it's a lot better communicating in person than with someone online. I don't know about you.
I got 6, that's all there is.
Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. Number 6 goes to the feeling that Pokemon the first movie is trash. But I also think that its remake, Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution, is better. Yeah, I'm serious. Pokemon the first movie is such a weird kettle of fish for me. I swear, to this day, people constantly defend this movie, saying how it's one of the most amazing Pokemon movies ever made, to the point of often spotting it quite high in Pokemon movie rankings, and I'm like, why? As someone who's actually seen every Pokemon movie, I can say with no doubt that the first movie sucks. I feel like people mainly remember this movie for nostalgic purposes, but when you take off the rose-tinted glasses, you'll find that this movie has so many problems. For a first Pokemon movie, it doesn't introduce us to the world that well. I thought that Mewtwo was a shit one-note villain despite having a really awesome backstory. The humor was pretty dreadful. The movie's attempts at being emotional, such as playing Brother My Brother during the fight, or how Pokemon tears bring Ash back to life, is so stupid it's comical. But this movie has two massive problems that seriously prevent this movie from being any good. First of all, its message, where they go on about how Pokemon fighting each other is wrong, and that they shouldn't do it.
Pokemon aren't meant to fight. Not like this.
This is hypocrisy at its finest. The whole premise of Pokemon is you battling other Pokemon, and defeating other gym leaders so that you can become Pokemon Master. So the fact that a movie about that is going, fighting is bad, they aren't supposed to do that, pisses me right off. The ending is terrible too, because Mewtwo wipes the memories of everyone aside from himself, thus rendering the entire movie pointless. Yeah, this movie is shit, and I'm honestly baffled when people keep defending it. Oh yeah, about the remake as well. I actually find it to be superior to the original, and I don't understand why people heavily dislike it. Yeah, it's a complete reversal from me. Granted, the movie isn't amazing. It does make some changes that I feel affect the story a tiny bit. The ending is unfortunately still a cop-out, and the Pokemon tier scene is still silly. But saying that, I didn't think the animation was too bad despite being very different to previous Pokemon movies. I like how Mewtwo was actually better written to be more sympathetic and less one note. And the message was actually changed too, so that instead of it being fighting is bad, it's more along the lines of regardless of if they're a clone or not, they're all living beings. Which, while it's not the most original message, it's at least way better than an anti-violence message in a franchise about fighting. So while I wouldn't say this movie is perfect, I do at least appreciate the attempt at addressing the flaws the original had. So yeah, first movie is shit, the remake is way better.
Multiplying by 5 is a little like counting by 5.
So I spent a good amount of time talking about a movie that I don't understand why people love. Now we get to move on to talking about a movie that I don't understand why people hate. From one franchise about monsters to another, I feel alone saying that Digimon the movie isn't that bad of a movie. Now, do I think it was clearly done on the cheap by basically stitching 3 shorts together? Yes. Do I think its editing can be kinda hectic at points? Yes. Do I think, as a newcomer to a franchise, you'd be confused about certain details? Yes. And do I think that the Angela Anaconda segment served no purpose to any point of the film?
Yes!
But I think the reason why I keep coming back to this movie is quite simply put, the charm that it has. It feels very much like a product of its time, but I of course mean that in the best way possible. has so much of that late 90s, early 2000s energy from its dialogue to its soundtrack. But all that aside, I just think this movie is actually pretty good. Not amazing or anything, but still good. The characters are actually not all that much different in personality from the one seen in Digimon Adventure and Adventure 02. Willis is such an underrated addition. The humor in this one I actually really enjoy. I actually find myself quoting it from time to time. Seriously, there are plenty of amazing moments. The action is also engaging, and I actually really like the animation it has. It's definitely completely different from the Digimon anime, but the fact it looks really different makes it feel unique, and kinda adds a more cinematic look, funnily enough. Plus, despite clearly based on different segments, at the very least, they try to make them make sense in a narrative standpoint, so it doesn't feel too confusing to watch. Speaking of which, the individual segments are great. Digimon Adventure focuses on a little backstory on how Tai and Kari got their very first Digimon via an egg, which was a cute little start to the whole franchise. Then we got Our War Game, which is arguably the best segment of the movie, where Tai and Izzy, along with Matt and TK, and their Digimon have to stop by a Boromon. And finally, Hurricane Touchdown, which has Davis and Willis stopping the mysterious Pokemon, who also has a connection with Willis. It becomes cooler when you learn that the first two segments were directed by Mamoru Hosoda, aka the same guy that did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, Summer Wars, and Wolf Children. That actually makes me appreciate this movie even more. Plus, this soundtrack is fire. Not only do we hear some iconic Digimon score and songs, including a brilliant version of Hey Digimon, but we also get some awesome songs like Kids in America, The Rockefeller Skank, 1 Week, The Impression That I Get, All My Friends Are Metalheads, and even Smash Mouth's All-Star. God damn, this movie is actually a lot of fun. And while I do agree that people can be blinded by nostalgia, this whole thing is coming from someone who has no nostalgic connection to the movie. I think this movie is relatively harmless. I do admit it has its faults, but I honestly can't bring myself to hate this one, no matter how hard I try. Plus, it has this moment.
What's the matter with you?
That's the saddest story I ever heard.
I'm the one with the problem, not you. Get over it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to hate it.
We went to the four-legged zoo to visit our four-footed friends.
This next opinion is another one that's kinda a straightforward one. But I understand that when it comes to anime, it's a bit of a touchy subject depending on who you ask. So I'll say this. I prefer watching anime movies and shows dubbed over subtitled. This also applies to animation in general to some degree, but this is more something discussed when it comes to anime, and personally, I've always preferred to watch an anime show or movie with a dub over watching its original version subtitled. But why? Well, it's kinda a long story. It's more something I attempted to do during my childhood when I grew up. When I watched, well, anything in Spain, I usually watch shows and movies in Spanish and Catalan. And hell, sometimes I'll still do that to this day. Not only did I have many DVDs in Spanish, but I also watched loads of TV in Spanish and Catalan, and some of these shows I actually remember very vividly. But for some reason, I never thought to watch shows in their original versions during those times. I mean, I would also watch English programming on TV as well, being part Spanish, part British. But for whenever I watched Spanish TV, I never thought to watch shows or movies in their original versions. Hell, I didn't even know Spanish TV had a second audio program track until I was 10. And that's only because for some reason, whenever I watched Super 3 on one of our TVs, it would always default to the original language track instead of Catalan. And that's actually how I watched Doraemon in Japanese for the very first time ever. It actually blew my mind, and while it was neat, my mind was always so used to watching it in Catalan, so I pretty much watched it in Catalan and never really considered watching it in Japanese with subs, and the same with loads of other things I watch. So it's kind of more of a force of habit to watch anime dubbed over subbed, since I find it a lot easier on my ears. And hey, it doesn't even have to be in English. If I don't watch it in English, I'll watch it in Spanish, that's not a problem. But if there are multiple English dubs, I usually try to go for the one that's pretty much uncut. Like when I went for Studiopolis' Sailor Moon dub over Optimon's dub. Funnily enough though, when it comes to live action stuff, I usually prefer watching it in its original dub. Though that could also be because I think it makes more sense with a lip sync, whereas with anime it doesn't bother me as much. So yeah, the entire reason why I prefer dubs over subs is entirely a childhood reason. And what of it?
3 is a magic number.
Ah, Animaniacs. One of the greatest cartoons to come out of the 90s. Creator Tom Ruegger and executive producer Steven Spielberg's second animated rodeo after Tiny Toon Adventures offers so much great elements such as amazing songs, clever humor for both kids and adults, zany animation and slapstick, a large amount of variety of segments, both recurring and one-offs, and an equally large cast of great memorable characters that all feel entertaining to watch. And there's loads of standout ones such as the Warner siblings themselves, Pinky and the Brain, Slappy Squirrel, the Godfathers, Rita and Runt, Buttons and Mindy, and plenty of different side characters alongside them, and it always feels great to see them all on screen. But if I were to look for a character in the entire Animaniacs cast that I feel like doesn't feel that memorable or iconic, that character actually exists, believe it or not. And that character is the one that's literal furry bait. Yes, number 3 is that I do not get Minerva Mink. Now, to make one thing perfectly clear, I don't despise Minerva Mink. I can definitely see why people love her so much. She's one of the most seductive characters of the series, and it's an iconic design and voice for sure. But let's put all this aside and ask this. Can you describe her personality? Yeah, basically all the men around her get into a Tex Avery styled infatuation stage just by noticing her. And she even does the same when seeing an attractive bloke, and if they're not attractive, she's just willing to just seduce them anyway to manipulate them. Or just reject them. I mean, it's slapsticky, so there are funny moments in them for sure, but the issue is that her own segments are very one note, and her character is not exactly that deep. I know it may be silly criticizing a character for not being deep in an episodic slapstick comedy, but practically all the other characters in this series have numerous traits to them so that they make you remember them easily. Even after revisiting her segments properly, they pretty much tell the same joke from the start to the end. That being, well, her managing to be able to seduce other men who aren't good looking or just outright rejecting them, and when a man is good looking, she's the one to be in their shoes. Again, there are parts that are funny, but compared to other Animaniacs segments, I feel like they're weak. As a matter of fact, not counting any miscellaneous segments or one-offs, Minerva Mink has the least amount of segments of the entire series, at just 2. I know a part of it is because of how controversial the segments were like when they first aired, but I feel like a part of me also feels like there's only so much you can work with a character that's as weak in terms of personality as her. Even in the other segments that she has appeared in, for the most part, they don't really expand beyond her personality, because she doesn't really have one. And the part that I don't get is, out of all the female characters of the series, she's the one that's arguably the most popular out of all of them, despite her scant appearances. I'm not joking, you go to a furry convention, and you're likely going to see someone dressed up as her at some point. And the part I don't get from this is that, of all the characters to be infatuated with in this series, why the one that doesn't exactly have any strong character or personality? And not only that, but they pretty much worship her, to the point that they got very upset when her cleavage was airbrushed out in Moon Over Minerva, and I'm like, and this is a massive problem to bitch about, why? I mean, this series has plenty of great female characters that I think were stronger written and more memorable than Minerva Mink. Hello Nurse, for example. I know she's attractive and the item of Yakko and Wakko's affection, but the thing about her is that she's not just written for that purpose, because it's been shown that she's smart too, and being a nurse at least has a job. Or what about Rita? Not only is she smart, but she's also sarcastic, has both a soft and tough side, and at least has a goal to try and look for a home for her and her pal Runt. Plus she has great songs she sings. And hell, Slappy's probably the best of all the female characters of the series. She's cynical, she's sarcastic, she's funny, and the purpose of her character is essentially how an old retired cartoon character would handle living in them present day. And that's the thing, most of the female characters in the series at least have a purpose. Minerva Mink doesn't really have much of a purpose, aside from being literal furry bait. Hell, I remember when the reboot happened, people were pissed that Minerva wasn't getting any proper segment, but I was honestly more happy that Slappy got a segment instead. Granted, it was the penultimate segment of the whole series, but something at least. Overall, I just don't understand why people love Minerva. And it's fine if you do. There are definitely parts I appreciate about her, like how she's voiced by Julie Brown, or how she's designed by Paul Dini. And like I said, she's definitely a cute character. But just to reiterate, I don't hate Minerva Mink. I just don't get her.
You can double any number, all you do is multiply by 2.
You know, Oscar season is nearly upon us, so I got a general question to ask. Do we ever have those movies where you feel like it doesn't deserve the Oscar awards or nominations that it got? I understand that not everyone will agree with what won Best Picture, or Best Director, or Best Animated Feature, to name a few. We all got different tastes, and that's fine. There are people that were upset that Crash won Best Picture. There were people that were upset that Big Hero 6 won Best Animated, though to be honest, I really love that one. Hell, I know someone that doesn't think The Boy and the Heron should have won Best Animated and that Across the Spider-Verse should have. I could go on and on about what awards the Oscars gave that people didn't like, but that's the story for another day. For now though, let me get on to a movie that won so many awards and got so much acclaim that I honestly think doesn't deserve any of them. Slumdog Millionaire. I honestly consider this movie to be awful. I may appear to be a massive contrarian, but here's the thing. I went into this movie expecting it to be an amazing experience. I mean, the concept is pretty intriguing at the very least. I like the idea of the main character getting all the answers for who wants to be a millionaire based on the events that happened in his life. The concept was fine. The execution though? Christ, what happened? I went into this movie disappointed because I expected this movie to be a feel-good movie, since that's what one of the reviews on the DVD box claimed it to be. I thought, hey, it might actually be the pick-me-up I need. But then after seeing it, it made me feel like, did we watch the same movie? I mean, there was moments including torture scenes from some of the worst and corrupt police in fiction, child abuse, jumping into shit to get an autograph, street riots that involve burning people and hitting mothers, orphan blinding, prostitution, abusive relationships, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, dude, that's really mean-spirited. I understand that this movie is a drama, so it's bound to have sad moments like this. But in that case, don't use words like a feel-good movie to describe it, because truth be told, I didn't feel that way with that movie until the very end of the movie with its dance party ending, which not only is a trope that I'm seriously sick of, but it also feels like mood whiplash. And while I did say that I enjoyed the concept of him getting the answers of the questions based on the things that happened in his life, in practice, it's stupid and some of the answers just feel incredibly contrived. Like, no joke, the reason why Jamal knows what Ram is holding in his right hand is because during one of the street riots, he just so happens by pure chance to have spotted a kid dressed up as Rama, so he's gonna know all that, but not who's on the 1,000 rupee note. You've seriously never seen a 1,000 rupee note up until the point you were interrogated by the police? And also how his brother mentions that he had a Colt 45, and somehow that teaches him who invented a revolver, despite never actually mentioning Samuel Colt's full name. And that's just some of them. I could go on all day about the contrivances this movie has, but then this segment alone would go on forever. The editing is a mess, and it overuses Dutch angles all the damn time to the point it reminded me too much of Battlefield Earth, and the characters range from uninteresting to downright infuriating, like the police. And it's not a problem with the actors, they're trying the best they can with what's given, but they can't save such bland characters. And Christ, the way that India is represented is quite frankly sickening. It's pretty much represented to be filled with nothing but poverty and crime, and it'll give people the wrong idea that India is like this in real life. Granted, it does have some problems with that, but representing the country as if it's just that and nothing else is extremely disrespectful. It's not a good sign when The Party, despite having some stereotypes, is a more loved movie in India than such an Oscar baity movie like Slumdog Millionaire. And what helps is that The Party was actually great, but I digress. I know this movie is a somewhat divisive Oscar winner, but the reason why it's so high is because I feel like it's not divisive enough. I feel really alone with this opinion, since I feel like this movie has so many issues, and in terms of writing, it's a complete mess, and in terms of tone, it's completely depressing despite giving me hope it wouldn't be, and in terms of being an Oscar winner, it really didn't deserve any of its awards. Okay, truth be told, it's not one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and in terms of movies from 2008, there have been way worse ones. I mean, The Love Guru and Disaster Movie exist. I just feel disappointed that I couldn't enjoy this one despite really wanting to. I definitely wouldn't consider this Best Picture worthy, and if this was a real game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I would walk away from this Oscar baity shit.
We are number one.
Oh boy, are you ready to hear my most unpopular opinion? Well, if you're not ready, then honestly, it's far too late for you now. And if you are ready, then good, because you're prepared for what's to come. So what is it? Well, let's not stall for time. Everyone, for my number one most unpopular opinion. I think that DVDs are better than Blu-rays. Now before you get angry for saying this kind of thing, let me set things straight. On a technical level at least, Blu-rays are superior to DVDs. They offer higher resolutions than DVDs, up to 1080p. They offer sound with way more channels, and they even store way more data than DVDs, allowing for more content to be stored. And don't get me started on UHD discs, which have even more space for even bigger resolution at 4K. Plus, they're way harder to scratch than DVDs. So why is it that I don't usually go for those and instead focus on getting video discs from 1996 that use MPEG-2 compression for video and only go up to 480p or 576p depending on if it's NTSC or PAL? Well, I got my reasons. To begin with, I just consider DVDs to be easier to find than Blu-rays, and cheaper too. And that's not to say that cheap Blu-rays or expensive DVDs don't exist. They certainly do, and I should know. But let's say that I'm out and about, and in a thrift store. In terms of DVDs, they'll tend to have loads of those, usually for a good price, while they either will have Blu-rays, but not a lot of them, or just no Blu-rays at all. But talking about price, let's talk about buying movies new, which people will probably do realistically anyway. DVD editions of movies tend to be way cheaper than Blu-ray editions of movies. I know it's maybe because they're cheaper to print, but my point stands. Sometimes you would find Blu-rays of single movies for the same price as you would find DVD sets of movies or shows, and I find that utterly ridiculous. And that's another thing. To anyone that wonders why I mainly show off DVDs on my channel, and wonder why I haven't really shown off many Blu-rays, or why I haven't replaced my whole collection with Blu-ray editions, well, if you're like me and have loads of physical DVDs in my collection, it would literally be a nightmare having to replace practically every single movie and set with Blu-ray versions. Plus, a lot of the movies I have, I've had them for literal years, and some of them, especially when it's a part of collection, took a long time trying to finish, like my Sailor Moon sets. I've already had a hard time trying to keep an eye out on them when the DVDs came out, and now have to replace them with Blu-rays just to get them in a higher resolution when the Blu-rays are more expensive than the DVDs. It's really not worth the hassle. And I should point out that this is coming from someone who has replaced some of his DVD versions with Blu-ray and DVD combo packs, so I can confirm that some of these sets are bloody expensive sometimes. Don't forget, I've been collecting DVDs ever since I was very young and haven't really considered Blu-ray collecting unless it also came with a DVD, but more on that later. Next, I just feel like DVD menus generally have more charm and character than Blu-ray menus. Most of the time. They feel more lively, more charming, and honestly one of my favorite parts of the DVD, seeing how crazy the menus can be, how creative the designs of them are, and how cool the transitions look. And a lot of them get me really excited to start the movie just from the presentation alone. And that's not to deny that Blu-rays can't have good menus, they're just not as good or as memorable. And I also hate one other thing. I hate when companies try to appeal to a niche demographic, like if it's of an anime or a popular show with fans or a cult movie, then they will only release their stuff on Blu-ray. If it comes to releasing stuff generally like blockbuster movies or whatever, they will release it on DVD, absolutely. But for niche stuff, they never consider to make a DVD version for the people that still enjoy DVDs. They only ever consider releasing them on Blu-ray. Hazbin Hotel? Only on Blu-ray. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off? Only on Blu-ray. Nichijou with an English dub? Only on Blu-ray. I swear the amount of times that companies only ever release stuff on Blu-ray without even considering that everyone can, or even wants to, upgrade to Blu-ray is insulting. Making these exclusive to Blu-ray is just the worst. I mean, yeah, you could import some of these, or buy bootlegs, but I always find it more fun to actually find it in the wild most of the time. And the worst part, a majority of the time, those Blu-rays don't usually appeal to casual viewers who want to potentially get into a show or whatever. These appeal to collectors, the kind of people that think spending $150 on Card Capture Sakura is a good idea. When a show or movie is only on DVD, I see plenty of people complain that they don't make a Blu-ray of it, even if it's SD on Blu-ray. But to me, who cares? I'm more than happy it's available on DVD, because it's better than no physical media at all. Or they complain if it's marketed to kids or casuals rather than collectors. But like, so what? A company can choose who to market to. I don't even have a problem if they market to collectors or not. Just give a cheaper version for people who can't or won't buy the higher quality Blu-ray collector's option. Also, for a while now, even DVD versions of things haven't been including all the bonus features of the Blu-ray versions. which honestly annoys me. I swear DVDs used to be capable of so much, and it's not like companies can't put them on, they just choose not to, which is bullshit. If you're gonna have bonus features, put them on both formats. And here's another problem, not everyone even has a Blu-ray player. Even today, Blu-ray players can go for quite a good bit, especially compared to DVD players. And if you want an external one for your computer, or a portable player, then it's somehow worse. And as for me, well, I only have 2 Blu-ray players, the PS3 and PS4. I don't even use them all the time, especially not to watch movies all the time anyway. Meanwhile, I cannot count how many things I have that let me play DVDs. I have some home ones, as well as a portable one. However, one type of Blu-rays I do like getting is the Blu-ray and DVD combos, because at least that way I'm able to watch a DVD anywhere I go, and a Blu-ray also anywhere I go. Because I know places I usually go to have a DVD player, but at least if it has a Blu-ray player, then I'll have a bit of a bonus experience. It's better than just taking the Blu-ray only to discover the place you're staying that doesn't even have a Blu-ray player. It's just a shame then that those seem to be more common in the US these days than they are in the UK and Ireland. And I don't know why. So yeah, despite DVD's shortcomings technically compared to Blu-rays, I will always find DVDs better than Blu-rays. Well, those were 10 opinions I feel incredibly lonely with. I sure hope I didn't bring in a mob with this one. Please. In all seriousness though, I found it pretty fun sharing opinions that only a small minority have. It felt special and exciting. And hey, maybe I might work on a sequel to this sometime. Who knows? Unpopular opinions are pretty fun to share, so I'll be curious on what a second video would bring. But as for this video, I think this is a perfect place to end it. Until next time, this is Jake saying goodbye, peace out, and if you got yourselves any unpopular opinions, feel free to share in the comments. And don't worry, I'm very respectful of your opinions. Just don't kill me over them.